All right. And welcome to the March 1st, 2021 meeting of the Metro Human Relations Commission. I call our meeting to order. We first need, excuse me, we first need a motion to conduct the meeting by electronic means.
I'll make that motion. I move that the items on the meeting agenda constitute essential business of this board, and that meeting electronically is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans, considering the COVID-19 outbreak, and that any rule that conflicts with Governor's Executive Order 16 permitting electronic meetings be suspended.
Can we get a second?
This is Janice Rodriguez. I'll second that.
Thank you. Discussion? Do we need to do a roll call on this? I can't remember.
Yes, I'll do it for you if you would like, Chair Richmond.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Commissioner Tran?
Here.
We need a yes or no.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay.
The motion, whether or not to have we have to approve conducting the meeting by electronic means.
Sorry, aye.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Yosbeck?
Yes.
Tucker, are you there?
Yes.
Venick?
Aye.
Rodriguez?
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
Robinson?
Aye.
And Chair Richmond?
Aye.
Miller? You with us, Commissioner Miller? Commissioner Dash? I know that Commissioner Dash is having an issue with audibles, so we're going to continue working on that. Is there anybody opposed? It appears the motion is passed. Chair Richmond.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Next, a review of the minutes. I hope everybody took a look at the minutes. They were sent around, so we'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I have a couple of corrections quickly.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. On page 2, Director's Report, it says the Mobile Diversity Seminar was conducted in July 27, 2021. So we just probably need to correct that to 2020. And secondly, another typo, the top of the next page under a comment that I made, Commissioner Rodriguez suggests Ann issues brief. Minor. That's it.
Actually, I think the Mobile Diversity Seminar was January 27th. So it's the right year, but the wrong month.
Okay. I knew something was off there. Thank you.
Right. Okay. So can we get a motion to approve with the 2 corrections noted? Would anybody like? Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Linda Robinson, a second.
All right. Any further discussion? Anybody catch any other errors? If not, I guess we need a roll call for this too.
I'm happy to.
That's something moving behind you. It looks like a tail.
I'm happy to do the roll call again, Chair Richmond. Just for the minutes clarification, was that Commissioner Venick who made the motion?
Correct.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, roll call vote, aye or nay. Commissioner Tran,
Aye.
Yazbek,
Yes. Aye.
Tucker,
Aye.
Rodriguez,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Robinson,
Aye.
Chair Richmond,
Aye.
and I still think, oh, and Commissioner Dash, can we hear you now?
Hi, yes, aye.
Yay! Glad to have you on. It appears the motion, oh, is there anybody opposed? Here's the motion. Motion is passed, Chair Richmond.
All right, thank you, everybody. Next up, financial business, or financial update, I'm sorry. Do we have a financial report?
I have sent the financial report to Treasurer Commissioner Venick. And I will attach the report to the public minutes for this meeting and send them to you as well. There's no out of the ordinary expenses, and we are still well within budget and on track for any requested savings.
Okay. All right. Any questions or comments?
I had none. This is Commissioner Venick.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Since we have guests here for new business, we'll move up with that. And it's my pleasure. I see they're, I'm sorry, did you have to
Actually-
say something?
Well, I do. Only we also have guests for our old business.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that. Okay, well, then we'll stick to the agenda. So
Yeah,
let's go ahead.
I would recommend that, Chair.
Okay.
Just
I'm
for
sorry. I
clar-
didn't
just-
realize we.
No problem. And just for clarification, we have joining us today, from Finance and Procurement, Michelle Lane and Zach Kelly. And they haven't prepared a presentation, but they have graciously agreed to join the meeting to answer any questions that you all might have about the proposed legislation that was presented by Ethan Lake and Odessa Kelly in our last meeting, and that's being filed this week as far as I know. And if you recall, they were asking for this body to consider supporting the legislation, or at least to get some feedback from you about the proposed legislation. So if you have questions from procurement or finance regarding the proposed legislation, they're here to answer any of your questions.
This is Commissioner
Questions
Dash.
or comments?
Are we jumping right into it now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so this is Commissioner Dash. I was just kind of reading through some of the legislation and things like that. And one thing I realized, I was just I didn't know this, but as a board, we actually, as a board, have a power to kind of subpoena people on behalf of, human rights, especially when it comes to contractor stuff. I mean, I don't know if subpoena is the right word, but we can actually bring people and have them speak under oath about how, the human rights violations and or their treatment of workers. And I would like to get a little more clarity on the power that we as a board might have and what we can do here, because I think that was very surprising to me and exciting to me.
Yeah, Mel, Eric, and you want to try to answer your question?
This is Mel, and I'm happy. I think I understand what the commissioner is asking. And in the Metro Code, under the powers and duties of the commission, the commission has the power and duty to investigate complaints regarding discriminatory practices by contractors working under agreements with metropolitan government. And in the section related to human relations, no, in the section related to hearing complaints alleging misconduct, when the respondent is a municipal government contractor, the commission has the power and duty to recommend to the purchasing agency the conditions under which a contract or franchise would be continued in force, suspended, or terminated.
That's really helpful, and I think that that clarified sort of my question, or kind of my thoughts on it. That really helped focus it. So thank you, Mel. I appreciate that. I'll wait for other questions before giving my very strong opinions on this bill. So thank you all so much.
So, Commissioner Dash, if I might, so you have strong opinions about the bill or the legislation. I'm interested in hearing a conversation among the commissioners, and maybe eventually a motion or a recommendation on a position from this body, if that is what you so choose to do. And for you all to have the opportunity to have, this is it. This is your opportunity to have a robust conversation about it. And if you have questions, you want to hear something from the purchasing agent, from finance, since we did hear from some proponents of the bill last meeting, I would really like you to have this opportunity.
Well, I've got a couple of questions, if this is the right time to ask them, Mel. I guess for me, if we are aware of contractors or just the practice that bottom line workers are not paid wages, and we are aware of this, is there not some way that is already present in your current policies to address that in a way that could at least mitigate that? That's my first question that will probably inform some others.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michelle Hernandez-Lange. I serve as the Chief Procurement Officer and the Purchasing Agent for the Metropolitan Government. And thank you all for the opportunity to be here and to take your questions. We appreciate your willingness to discuss with us and understand from our perspective how this proposed legislation would impact our purchasing activities. So Commissioner Tucker, to answer your question, in our current contracts, construction contracts, I have security on the brain this week, I've been working on that. We do have language that is built into those contracts that requires certain things of the prime contractor as it relates to their activity with their subcontractors. If there are any issues related to payment, whether there are any issues related to this general standard performance under that contract, at the end of the day, that prime contractor is responsible fully and wholly for the performance of work. And if there are any issues, then they would be expected to resolve those issues. That's part of the reason why we secure bonds on construction contracts, if the issues do rise to a point where, say, contractors are not paying their employees, or not their employees, but their subcontractors, then we do include some specific payment bonds on each of those contracts for that purpose, because at the end of the day, those contractors and those subcontractors need to be paid for work performed. So there is a provision and a mechanism or a control that is built in play right now, such that Metro is not ultimately liable for non-payment.
And then I guess my follow-up question would be, using the example that we were made aware of a subcontractor painting at McGavin, not able to get paid almost 30 grand. They had to go through a court process, and it was settled for less than the actual wages. Help me understand what happened to where what you just said did not happen.
My greatest apologies. I am honestly very not positioned to speak to how schools procure. I don't have any purview over their purchasing, and our procurement code does not extend to their procurement activity. They are governed by the school board. They do have their own separate purchasing agent who is responsible for all of that procurement activity. And they have different sections within the MNPS system that is responsible for different types of contracts. So I apologize. Again, my biggest apology that I'm really not able to speak to that. And I know you don't want to hear that. You want to, have your questions answered. But I can really only speak to you about what we do here in the general government with the various 50 some odd, semi-autonomous boards, commissions, and agencies, departments within general government Metro.
And Commissioner Tucker, just to add on to that, one thing that we have in our contracts that would have allowed us to address a similar situation, again, we're not responsible for schools' contracts, but in our contracts, there's standard language that allows us to pay subcontractors by double issuing a check. If we have a subcontractor who's not being paid, then we as Metro are allowed to double issue a check to the prime and to the sub, so that we could make sure that the sub gets paid. So we have what I would call a fail safe in place for us to be able to deal with that on the front end before it got to a situation like I believe that you've described at the middle school.
Well, and then I guess that even further conflates my thought in that why would Metro's purchasing not be consistent across what is Metro? To where would not Metro legal not think that that's not in the best interest of the city to have different processes to where there's no expectation? While I understand that the board is the responsible party for Metro schools, I thought that there was some commonality between Metro Nashville processes that would attain or attempt to create some consistency about what Metro is about. I found that confusing.
If I could address that, and I will certainly defer to Mr. Smith and the law department fully, but what I would note, Commissioner Tucker, is that there would be commonality to the extent that it is required or spoken to by state law. So there are certain aspects of government procurement that are going to be uniform as established in state law. But I would certainly defer to the law department to speak to what some of those more nuanced differences are between the way that we do business legally within the general government and how Metro Nashville Schools as an LEA would do business, because I do know that they have some state granted provisions and perhaps some things that they can do that they're allowed to do by state law that would not be consistent across the general government.
Yes, Ms. Lane, you've spoken correctly. The school systems operate under some different guidelines and legal requirements. And then as to what provisions you may place in a contract, not only are you obviously held to whatever the legal requirements are, but sometimes in the negotiations of a contract, parties don't always agree on the same terms. And sometimes, depending upon the nature of the contract, the negotiating power of the contractor may be such that the schools would have agreed to something different. I have not looked at the contract involved in the case that you spoke of, Commissioner Tucker, and don't know if it had the ability to issue two payees. I will mention this, though, in regard to Ms. Lane's comment and the other individual that made the comment. I believe that the first time it happens, you would not yet be issuing checks with two payees. It's only after a problem is brought to the attention of Metro that they then implement that as a fallback position to see that the contractor is paying the subcontractors. I don't know that on the front end it's always necessary to do it that way. It's more of a, once the practice is brought to our attention, that's when it is implemented. But again, sometimes there are provisions in contracts that are not always identical one to another simply because that's how they were negotiated. But what is required is that the law, in terms of some provisions, are allowed that are required, I should say, in order to meet the law. But beyond that, it's the negotiations and bargaining of the parties. And frankly, I don't know that the school board and its contracts, it may be a different person negotiating a different contract, but generally I believe they try to follow similar principles. And certainly within the legal department, we would follow similar principles in terms of contract approvals and negotiations. But without the specifics of the McGavick case, I'm a little bit unable to exactly determine whether or not that contract had the issue, or maybe it just simply had not yet triggered the process of issuing checks with two payees on the same check.
Okay, again, my final comment at this point is my largest concern is that what happens is the bottom is always the one that suffers. Everybody else gets paid and the bottom doesn't, to where just from an equity standpoint, from the city standpoint, I don't know, that just sounds like some regular contract language that you will pay those subs that work for you, and if not, we're going to do whatever. To me, maybe that's probably too simplistic, but I don't know what type of negotiations would allow me to say that not paying folk would ever be okay.
Chair Richmond, may I be recognized?
Yes, please, go ahead.
One thing to that point, Commissioner Tucker, regarding equity, I would note that as a point of practice, and I just want to clarify, this is not the process for all subcontractors, but for all subcontractors that are minority or woman-owned. And if they are small business subcontractors with subcontract activity of at least $50,000, we have a very robust contract compliance monitoring process that ensures that what was proposed is actually paid. So to that extent, from the standpoint of equity and our efforts to contract for equity, the city does have very robust software and processes in place that ensure that payments are made. That includes the receipt of canceled checks. And we do what we like to call a three-way match. So what was on the invoice, as well as what was reported by the prime, should be substantiated by a canceled check to that subcontractor. And we've been engaging that process for over a decade.
The other questions? All right, well, I guess hearing none. Thank you for coming and answering our questions.
If I may, Mel and commissioners, we have been fortunate, and Zach, please feel free to chime in here, but we've been fortunate to work with the the sponsors on this legislation and to provide some feedback to that legislation. And I believe, Zach, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we've provided that to Mel. I don't know if it's been disseminated, but in an effort to ensure that it would be some legislation that would actually be workable by the procurement division. So I just want to bring that for commissioner consumption as well.
May I ask a question at this point? So in that spirit, is it your sense, Ms. Lane, that the legislation as amended that we have before us reflects not a compromise, but a structure that you think will be workable through your office?
There are still several outstanding items, and Zach, jump in and tell me. I believe we've shared these with the sponsor, but we received an updated version of the legislation yesterday evening, and so we have reviewed that and marked it up in a similar fashion to what we marked up the first, and we have provided that to Director Fowler-Green. But we have not, I have not had a chance to provide the updated comments to the commission because, again, we saw it less than 24 hours ago and we needed to run that through our internal processes. I would say to you that there are still, certainly we appreciate the changes that they've made because we want this to be workable, and it's our job as bureaucrats to make it work. But there are still several areas of concern that we have. Some of which we think are technical, all of which we think are an easy enough fix that don't change the outcome, the intended outcome of the legislation.
So then do I take what you're saying then is that the comments you have back are not substantive?
I would say that they are substantive, but they don't change the objective of the legislation, but there are some significant differences. There are some not significant differences, but there are some significant areas of concern that we have where there may be unintended consequences.
And can you just give some sense of what that might be?
Yes, sir. If I can give you some idea of where our concern lies.
And if I could jump in just a second there also, Zach, Commissioner Venick, I think to that point, there are a couple of areas that, we had discussion with the sponsors, and we think that it's just by error or omission that those items that they're doing a lot, just like all of us, and they fail to adjust those items. So we want to note that as well.
Yeah, certainly. And I'll just kind of run through some of our top. I have about 10 screens open here, so you'll have to bear with me. I think we have some concerns about the changes to the PSB. They've accommodated most of those. There is and I hesitate to say this here because I know your audience, but there's a change in there that gives the Metro Human Relations Commission an appointee to the Procurement Standards Board, and it's not clear to us what the compelling interest is there. And the other positions that they've added to the board, we understand that, and we've had that discussion, but that position hasn't been entirely articulated to us. We think that there's a possible solution there to achieve their end. And so we hope that they'll work with us on that. Section 2 is perfectly fine. We've worked together on that. There are some broad concerns on Section 3, but those concerns, or some narrow concerns rather, on Section 3. But again, we think that is an area where it may just be oversight. The Division of Purchases does not monitor ourselves every contract. That is the project manager in the procurement department. And so there's some language that needs to be massaged there to reflect that, just to reflect the accuracy of who's monitoring these contracts. And it is the departmental users who would be in the best position to do that. Section 4, there we appreciate the sponsors harmonizing some of the differences between the maximum time that the purchasing agent can debar someone, which is 3 years, and the time period for a responsible bidder or offerer. There is one item at the end where they've left in the number 7 rather than 3. My sense is that that may be an oversight. And so I think that largely we've worked out our differences on section 4. Section 5 is similar. The effect of section 5, our construction contracts effectively already have language in them that address the items that are in section 5. Specifically, section 18 and section 27 of our standard construction contracts require the reporting of subcontractors, and also speak again to what is required for them to retain in their records. And so we think this is something that is already happening and is already required, and we don't want this to create a duplicative effort. I apologize for the knocking. My Katie's plate has arrived for the day.
Let me add one thing to that, if I may. Zach, section 13 of that same contract also specifies that prime contractor in the existing construction contracts, that the primes are wholly responsible and completely responsible for the execution of the work. So consistent with what Zach just noted, you know, the spirit, the intent, and the letter of the contract already speaks to all of the things that are included in that section.
Right, and to circle back to what Commissioner Tucker, I believe, was talking about earlier in terms of, and what legal obliquely referenced, there is language that is in the contracts that requires payment of subcontractors within 14 days, and of course we have to be made aware of that, because it would be prohibitive for us to prospectively monitor that without a significant addition of resources and staff, because there may be multiple subcontractors on a contract. And so for us to proactively monitor the payroll of these contracts would be something that would be, at least under current, it would be an administrative burden that we couldn't effectuate. Section 6, again, we had some differences there, and largely those have been addressed. We do have some concern with section B and limiting that to contracts over $1 million, and again, requiring this to be done by the purchasing agent. It is the project managers in the individual departments who are actively working with these contracts, and those would be if you want to put the burden on Metro to monitor something like that, the project managers are going to know that before we do, and they're the individuals who work with these contracts, and that's where that administrative burden should be placed. Section 7, we had some issues there, and those have been accommodated. And then section 8, on the points about a toilet and the hand washing stations, OSHA regulations have standards that are set for non-permanent workplaces to dictate how many of these that you have. And the toilets are tied to the hand washing stations. If you want to make that minimum 2, we have no problem with that, but doing it by 4 is a bit of a false sense of security. If you're building an 8-story building, certainly you're going to want to have one on every floor. But if you're building a 55,000 square foot warehouse that's technically speaking only 1 story, the way this is written, it could leave you with 1 toilet, 1 hand wash, or 2 toilets, 1 hand washing station. And so you have the situation where by citing OSHA, you have guidelines with OSHA, with what Metro is putting into place, and we wouldn't know how to either effectuate or monitor compliance with that section as it's written. So our suggestion again is that if you want to set the floor at 2, then you say that you have to follow the OSHA regulations for this, except that there not be less than 2. Because I think we're all in agreement with that. There's also some concern around the pendency of an emergency order requirement from a state or a county health department. If there's a federal emergency order in place, if there are other recommended items for PPE that you need that aren't related to a dependency of an emergency order, certainly we want our contractors to provide those, and we don't think that you should limit it to that narrow period. Finally, and then I'll stop, around the temporary laborers performing work, we have consulted with some of our prime contractors, especially those who are small, Black, brown, and women-owned. And the feedback that we've gotten from them has been that this final section around temporary labor and requiring all temporary labor to be made a job offer for a permanent position within 30 days, that has the potential to negatively impact the ability to scale up. A lot of times our small firms, which are disproportionately Black and brown owned and female owned, those firms to get to bid on or to bid in coordination with a metro project, they will use temporary labor to scale up. And 30 days is simply not a sufficient amount of time to allow them to scale up and bring people on. At that point, at maximum, you've been through 2 billing cycles. So you can't do that. And so the effect of this, I don't think is going to be that you have fewer temporary laborers. It's going to be that you have more laborers with a 29-day contract. And a previous suggestion that we have made is that if there's concern about the amount of temporary labor, you cap it at a percentage of the prime contractor's workforce. And that was not taken up here, but that I think would be a fairer way to do it to businesses that are traditionally disadvantaged. And I hope that was not too quick, but that's a general overview of where we're at.
Well, I appreciate that. Obviously, I mean, I think as to the technical aspects, I think that I would hope that to the extent that this gets approved and adopted, it would be monitored to see, how it in fact functions in real life, and there would be open discussion later on. But I would go back to one of your first points, and just given that you're speaking to the Human Relations Commission, and you articulated a reason why, not seeing a justification for it being the named board, let me just suggest to you that the Human Relations Commission is dedicated to non-discriminatory distribution of metropolitan government, among other things, in Davidson County. In fact, is very concerned and has sponsored a concept of equity lens evaluation of metro budgets and things going forward. So I think if there's going to be a board or a commission that would be having a seat on the procurement board, it would be the Human Relations Commission as well as the others. But we'll leave that to the hopefully to the sponsors and to the wisdom of the council.
And if I could just weigh in one more time, very, very briefly, Zach. You made a statement about administrative burden, and I think that's kind of the heart of this. I think what we're trying to do is to step in and see what we do better by the people who tend not to be done better by. So if it's administrative burden, then I think maybe Metro needs to consider if that's not something that they need to bear. Because what we're trying to do is not get into the legal processes so much over how do we make it right? How do we do what we can as a city to look out for the guys who don't get looked out for? So when you say administrative burden, I don't know, it just harkens me back to my bureaucratic days of working in Metro and the frustration that is often associated with that. And what ends up not getting done is right. Right don't get done. But now we'll be legal, but it won't be right. And so I think that's what Stand Up Nashville's trying to do. And I think our entree into that is to also try to help facilitate that also. So I would hope that procurement is looking at this, not from what I don't have to do or what I don't want to do, but how can we try to do right by folks who are often done wrong?
And I think that we agree with you, Commissioner Tucker, completely. There's nothing in this that, in terms of outcomes, that we disagree with. When I say administrative burden, my intent in saying that is that we want to get to the same outcome. We just don't want to ever be in a position of promising you something that we don't have the ability to deliver. And I think you would find that our staff are perfectly willing to do whatever is necessary. We just want to get to it in the most effective way. And that is why we have been so appreciative of Mel coming to us and talking to us about this and seeing how we can find a way, and the sponsors, in finding out how we can get to the same outcome in the most effective way possible for Metro. And in terms of the, I anticipated some pushback on the comment about the PSB, but I would say to you gently that you have a power as this board, as one of your commissioners, who's I noted at the beginning, to you already have the power in your incorporating language to affect this process. And so, I think you have the power that you have the power that you see, as it were, is what
I ask a question. Whenever there's a high administrative burden to do any kind of oversight, especially when you're talking about looking whether these subcontractors have been paid, et cetera, et cetera.
I like your cat here. It's very nice.
Sorry, he likes to do that. Is there a way to do, so something we used to do, federal government used to do, is random checks. So obviously you can't look across, 5,000 projects in the city or whatever. But, and I get that you don't have 100 people in your department to do that kind of due diligence monthly or whatever. But something like what David Tucker's talking about is just, can we up this a little bit? Like, can we get more energy around this so that it's not slipping through the cracks? And I can tell that you've got responses that are like, hey, we can meet y'all in the middle on this, but how can we sort of, this thing about not getting paid, instead of being like, yo, you gotta get us 10 more people on staff for us to be able to monitor this properly. What's a way to do it with agility, efficiency, low budget, that can get us to where we're trying to go?
And I would refer to Michelle on part of this, because I think that you would find that we largely have, we have not had the issue we have not had a large issue that I'm aware of, and Michelle certainly can speak to this, with our subcontractors getting paid. We have language that deals with that. We have processes that deal with that. We have a business development officer who is the first line of resource to deal with that if there is an issue around that. In terms of the spot checks that you kind of referenced, that is some of the language that we have proposed back, is to make it discretionary, where either when we have a complaint or where we can go in and do a sample, or making the language permissive enough that we could retain something like a compliance system. We have a compliance system in place for our Black, Brown, and woman-owned businesses, those contracts, to monitor every one of those. And there is software and there are programs that are out there that we could utilize to proactively monitor this. But the way the language reads now is it says specifically that we have to contract with a qualified firm. We think that we could contract with a service of some sort, or that is part of the execution of the contract. The procuring department could do that, to where they make sure that they are monitoring that. And in that case, we would be able to monitor all of these contracts for compliance. But there just needs to be a slight massaging of language. And when I say that, I want to be very clear that I've talked to Ethan, I think, 3 times over the last 3 days. And so they have been very open to the suggestions that we have, and I don't want to in any way suggest that they're not. Those conversations have been very productive. And my sense is that the council AD and workers' dignity want to get to everybody wants to get to the same place. So we are working to do exactly what you've asked about.
Yeah, if I could just speak to that as well. Zach, I think you've articulated it well on some of these items where We still have, I'd call them just minor sticking points in the legislation. To Zach's point, we have offered up some alternative language that we think would be more workable. And then to the point that Commissioner Tucker made, again, we don't mean administrative burden in the sense of why do we have to do this, or, somebody's got to do this. We absolutely agree with, the intent of this, but in an effort to ensure that it produces the kinds of result that you're looking for, or that the sponsors are looking for with this. We know, being practitioners, that there are certain places where certain of these duties are more properly fit. And in some instances, they are more properly fit within the department to ensure that you always have that data and information that you need in order to then make some decisions, to be able to monitor, to be able to review, and then to be able to understand the effectiveness of the legislation. So to the extent that, we're saying administrative burden, that is what it is. Let's put this, if we're gonna be doing this, let's do it in a way that produces the kinds of result that we're looking for. And here's where it's best, put within a department. So that's that intention there. And again, we are offering up some, alternative language that we think will be beneficial in getting to the heart of what this seeks, but that will also be the best method to collect that data and to get that information and to effectuate the intent.
Let me just say this, Zach and Michelle. I don't want anything that I say for you to take that I don't recognize that what you've done, even with Stand Up Nashville to this point, is kind of what I like to see happen all the time. That the government listens to a group of its constituents in a real way. So just the interchange that you've already done with them to get to this point, I find it refreshing that you all are working with them on that. So again, even as we push you, I'm not trying to push you off the cliff. I'm just pushing you.
I also
very much appreciate it.
Thank you.
This is Pratik Dash again. I just wanted to name one thing. Is just like, I know we were back and talking about the seat for the Metro Human Relations Commission and stuff, and I just want to remind everyone, especially my fellow board members, like, we didn't ask to be put on this assignment. Like, obviously, we didn't ask for this. Obviously, that the sponsors trusted us enough that they, that's the reason that they proposed it. So I just want to name that, like, it's not like we're trying to push and get this seat or anything. I just want to name that for my fellow board members as well. And just, here's the thing, the way I see it is a 16-year-old died. And that's gonna, like, I don't want us to forget the thing that spurred all this and everything. And I understand that there's a bunch of technicalities here and there or whatever, but a 16-year-old died. And the way I see it is that this legislation can help prevent that. And if that's one less 16-year-old dying on the job or getting hurt on the job, that's enough for me. So I don't think that should be up to debate. I don't need to hear any responses. That's just my heart's where it is. And I just want to be clear about that.
I agree wholeheartedly, and because I think we all have to be aware that we're really talking about the immigrant community being affected more than anyone else here, and that we all know that individuals bid contracts with wages that they have no intention of paying because they hire immigrant workers. Now, that's not what this is talking about. So we all know that there's still problems with the exploitation of workers, and particularly immigrant workers. So I just want to say again, to my fellow commissioners' point, we are solidly behind them in trying to address those issues that are affecting one part of our community much more than the other.
Can I say something to you now? Hi, it's Erin. Sorry, I was, again, a couple minutes late. I've had commuter issues, but I'm listening to all of this, and I really just want to echo, in many ways, what all of my fellow commissioners had said. Commissioner Tucker and I usually are pretty in line on these things, and that's kind of why I've been a little bit quiet until now, because I really think that Commissioner Tucker is just pushing a reiteration of the fact that, as we all know, as things can happen with legislation, the best and the most conscious of intentions sometimes don't end up fixing the problems that even are trying to come out of it. So there are some slippery slopes in some of these places where we just want to make sure that what we're all agreeing on and putting to the forefront is marginalized folks that continue to be marginalized and harmed. And I know that I want to echo the support of, I think, everyone in this context is in that same mind frame, and is hoping that the continued and the pushed work of this and potential legislative changes will actually do that, as opposed to it just being another thing that ends up not maybe making the changes and difference you want. But we're definitely behind you in full support, and thanks, and I will be off now.
Yeah, I hate to. We still have two more guests who've been waiting patiently, and I think they also have a very important issue to discuss. So again, I want to thank Zach and Michelle. Thank you for being here, for answering our questions and talking about this really important issue. And so again, we appreciate an attention to this. Thank you again. And again,
Thank you.
For discussion, but we have another important issue coming up next. So, I kind of hate being mean like that. But anyway, moving on to new business. I'm sorry, was somebody saying? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, I mean, since discussion is over, can we make a motion on this, or is that something that we can do?
Yes.
I'm sure someone can do it more eloquently than I. I always, need the help of fellow commissioners to make it a little more eloquent. But I mean, I would like to make a motion to just to I guess support this legislation and I guess move. I don't, if somebody can help me make the motion here, I don't exactly know the right words to support the legislation and move it forward, or whatever we need to do here. I don't exactly know the right words.
Well, let me take a shot at it. I offer a motion that we wholeheartedly support this legislation's efforts to I don't know, but I don't know. I think it's a larger issue that this legislation is trying to get to. I want it to be.
What about we move for motion for the Metro Finance and this group, whoever these two people, continue to work collaboratively to ensure that immigrants and minorities are protected while they're working in the contractor industry. Something broadly like that. Can we? Is that too broad?
Can I jump in real quick and just say that I do think that the spirit of it is really good. I think the verb that really bothers me in terms of bureaucracy, like the word excellence, is to effectuate. And there are ways in which they were saying that things could not be effectuated. And I think what Commissioner Dash has been saying is that with payment, there's also the issue of safety and just worker safety and conditions that are good for workers. And there seems to me that we need to further push on that, get that inability to effectuate or to monitor all the different levels of subcontracting and all the different levels of safety to be implemented somehow. And so I think when some administrators say that they can't effectuate something, makes it seem to me like just trying to fix something or collecting data to give contracts out, but not implementing or certain aspects of capability, which this bill I think is trying to do. So I just want to emphasize that the spirit of all this is correct, but to emphasize the actual accountability for both payment and for safety and working conditions. And they kept bringing up like Black and brown and women contractors, which is important, but at the bottom line is the conditions for people who are working. So if we can have a motion towards that kind of language of, I guess, effectuating payment, safety, working conditions for workers of all contractors and subcontractors.
Commissioner Tran, sounds like you made the motion.
Yeah, are you making?
Commissioner Ali has her hand up.
Yes, thanks.
Yes.
Lower my hand. Thank you. I couldn't agree more. I thought that was beautifully said as a motion. I'm taking that as a motion, and I'd like to second it. And I think that if we can root this in principles that adhere across the board and remind people what are humane working conditions, and given that that's the purpose of this commission, it's in our title. It's human relations, and we root everything from there. And I think that would be a very powerful statement. And I second that motion.
So is everybody clear on the motion? Do you want to restate the motion this one last time before we vote?
Sure.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Tran, before you do that, everybody will, if you're not speaking, will you please mute your microphone so we can hear Commissioner Tran as clearly as possible? Thank you.
Okay, are we ready? So I make a motion for this bill to move forward with the support of Metro administrators in order to support the working conditions, the work payments, and the work safety for all workers involved in Metro contracting at all levels from contractors to all subcontractors along those principles.
So we've heard the motion stated. I think we've talked this out. I think everybody's clear. So I guess we need a roll call on this one too.
We first need we already had a second, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
I second.
Great. Thank you. And Chair Richmond, I'm happy to do the roll call vote again, if that will be helpful.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. And the pending motion, aye or no, Commissioner Yazbek,
Aye.
Tucker,
Aye.
Pryor, Commissioner Pryor. Hey, Commissioner Rennick,
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez,
Aye.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Robinson,
Aye.
Just
Chair
one
Richmond.
comment. Marissa, would you be able to mute yourself again?
Mel, I'm sorry. I couldn't find my unmute button. This is Commissioner Pryor, and I'm an aye. Apologies.
Okay, great. Okay, and I'm sorry, I think I got the aye from Chair Richmond, Commissioner Abel-Fazli. Miriam,
Aye.
thank you. Miller, Commissioner Miller.
Aye.
Great. And the second was from Commissioner Ali, is that correct?
Correct. Aye.
Great. And Commissioner Dash?
And I just want to say, because of all these ayes I'm hearing, I'm really proud to be on this board. So just wanted to name that too while I say my aye.
Well, thank you. I am proud to work for you all. And are there any no's? Okay, with that, Chair Richmond, the motion passes.
Thank you, everybody, for that. And again, Michelle and Zach here. We like to introduce, move on to new business. Appreciate our to get for your inquiry. And so we have here from the Nashville Peacemakers, we have the executive director, Clemmy Greenlee, and the treasurer, Cindy Montano. So take it away, and thank you for being here.
Hey, Clemmy, you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you now. You're it's quiet, but we can hear you.
Okay. Unfortunately, I've been called to Chattanooga from sitting in my van, guys. So please excuse me for that. Got a van full of kids that I had to sit to the restaurant, so I can have some quietness. First of all, just let me say I am so grateful to be here. Is it hard to hear me? It seems like you're having a hard time to hear me.
Yes, Clemmy, you're not real clear. You really aren't clear, Clemmy. If you could be just a little bit clearer.
Oh, God. Okay, just go to Cindy till I figure out something. Cindy, are you on?
No, but you're better now. You're better right now.
Okay. So, first of all, just let me thank you guys for allowing me to be here. How did Nashville Peacemakers start? In 2000, I saw trouble with guns and gangs and young black men. And I took upon myself to step out here and try to do something in 2000. 2003, my only son was gunned down. And so that really made me step in it because I couldn't get nobody to listen. So I didn't want to get angry. I just wanted to help the mother and the son that murdered my son. Let me help him. Let me figure out what happened. And that's what I went out to do. From that moment on, I hit the streets and I found out that it was a lot of lack of information and a lack of education for the streets of my community. So I have to say that I chose to teach them the things that they don't know other than the violence and the poverty and the social justice part of why they need to be educated in other areas. Not only did I find out that once I hit the streets and all this murder with me, black on black crime, I called it what it is. It consisted of me helping the mom with burials, clothes. Some of us called me and didn't even have clothes to put on their kids for the burial. Headstones. I ended up doing all of that. So, but my number one thing were, what can I teach the next person not to make their graveyard? I'm different on purpose. I chose to do this myself in my community because I am personally hit with it. I don't knock any other organization, but other organizations can't match my mission statement because they haven't been touched with it. That's why I'm coming here to talk to you guys about what you guys can do to help me, motivate me, and also join me. I do my mental health with my constituents on a different level. That's why they can't go to mental co-op because I have to have a different therapy for them than they offer. And we'll talk about that on another note. So I just want to just kind of give you the reason. Personally, I've lost my son, I've lost my 18-year-old grandson, and I've lost my 18-year-old nephew to the gun violence in these streets. And this is why I'm going to continue to do what I'm trying to do. So I'll take that on and pass it to Cindy so she can touch on her topic. Is Cindy on?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It took me a second to find my unmute button. Can y'all see the screen? Are y'all able to see the screen that I'm sharing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you can see then what the mission and vision of Nashville Peacemakers is that, as Clemmy said, we work with youth in distressed neighborhoods to give them the basic life skills and self-worth to choose alternatives to violence, and then also to be a support to the moms or fathers whose child have been victimized. And we do that through 3 basic programs, 2 youth mentoring programs, Back to Basic and Straight Talk, and then Mothers Over Murder, which is a grief support, as well as a social justice action group for parents who have lost a child. As Clemmy was saying, you know, there's 5 ways that we, especially in 2020, showed up to our constituents because some of our programs weren't able to operate as normal. One of the ways that we have really helped our constituents is access to technology, for distance learning, for distance counseling, things like that. We've created access to healthy food through community volunteerism. A lot of the kids, our moms, are volunteering with other organizations to help distribute foods and other needs during COVID and some of the other things that happened in 2020. Community outreach has been a big need in 2020 and continuing into 2021, and that's in the form of rent assistance, utility assistance, needs assistance, basic needs assistance, whether that's, you know, a pack of Pampers and some baby formula, or assistance with getting a prescription paid for. We meet the needs of our people where they are, what they need. If they come to Clemmy, if they come to Nashville Peacemakers with a legitimate need, we are going to help them. Our youth programs, Clemmy mentioned, we are different on purpose. Our youth programs are created with prevention as opposed to rescue as the end goal. And we do that by taking the stance of let's end the violence, enough is enough. We do that through educating the kids in new exposure, new experiences, new ways of thinking that they haven't encountered before. And then of course we have the program for parents. So we are encompassing the whole family. And our greatest need right now is a building. We need a place where we can meet because of the COVID restrictions that have come into place with some of the other areas where we were meeting. We are looking in 2021 to secure a building of our own. We have had a very benevolent donor step up and commit to the rent for a year. But we got to find the building to pay the rent on, and then we need to create a plan to carry the sustaining of that building forward into 2022.
Yeah. That's basically it. It's not no long drawn out story or poor political news story. It's not a sad story. It's a story where I'm going to continue to grow, continue to go. But I'm letting people know I'm not only concerned about my community, I'm concerned about your community. Because if we can't put a damp on this violence with these young
I'm sorry, Clemmy, we are having a hard time hearing you.
Okay. I'm sorry, my phone was ringing at the same time.
Well,
okay, well, y'all go ahead. Y'all have any questions?
I just want to ask, what is the ask from us?
Clemmy? Okay.
There's a lot of sounds for some reason, but I believe Commissioner Tucker.
Any questions?
from us, and I think that's what we all would come with initially. Am I correct that that's what you asked, Commissioner Tucker? That the question is, what do they need from us? How can we help?
One of our biggest needs right now is, as I stated, was a building. We're having a challenge locating a building in the areas that we serve, which is primarily 37208, 37209. With the regentrification going on, securing a building has become a bit of a challenge. So I'm not sure.
I need you to write us in your budget. Can you write us in your budget and help us with funds?
Okay, so is the I might have misunderstood this before, but I might have misunderstood this before, but my understanding was that you were having an issue procuring it, but you had a benevolent, supporter that was going to pay for it. Is the issue that why you aren't able to procure a place because there isn't enough of an amount, or are there other challenges? And if there are other challenges, what are they, and in what ways can we serve you?
My other, can y'all hear me? I am so sorry. Can y'all hear me? You still can't? Okay. My other challenge is I need volunteers. I need people to come on board with me. Some of the things that I can't get to because I built it this far and I'm stuck. Some of the people whose doors I can't get in, you guys can get me in. Some of the introduction you can tell me about, I would put forward and work with it. So I don't just need funds in a building. I need people. I need people from all areas, all colors, all sizes to come in and help me. Everybody always saying there's one kid on the block. One organization can't do the same thing every time. There's plenty of us out here that's doing it. We just don't have the resources and the help.
I really want to hear what Clemmy's saying. There's a lot of background noise. Would it be possible for everyone to mute their lines so that we can hear what she's saying, please? Thank you.
There's really a lot of us out here on the streets that nobody even know about, taking our own money, our own tears, and our own pain, trying to protect your neighborhood because these are my kids and in my neighborhood. But people are always stuck on one or two organizations. Every time you give money or talk about an organization, it's one or two names, and y'all know what they are. I don't have to call them. I've been out here. I didn't get the proclamation of 2019 for nothing. My work speaks for itself. But maybe they say I don't know how to talk. I don't know how to speak. Clemmy, you scare people when you come in. Well, hell, people need to get scared. Look what's going on out here. So I'm passionate. I've lost all of I done plead the blood of Jesus. I done lost the ultimate price that I done paid. But I still want to help save that other child. I still want to help save your community because they coming. They already out there. And if I feel like I know how to get them and get their attention, then somebody need to say, let us try. You can't never say I don't know how to do it because ain't nobody never gave me a chance to show them what I know how to do. I can only show y'all what I done in the last 5 years that done worked. I got these 10 kids now, 10 boys and 10 girls. The mama didn't want to be bothered with them. Juvenile told me I was wasting my time. Neither one of them have been back to juvenile, have been suspended, or have been, the parents is asking me whatever I done, keep doing it because they're cleaning out their closet. They're helping with work at home. I do this out of my living room because I lost my place when the tornado came. I wasn't buying it, I was renting it. And so after the tornado came, the landlord sold it, and you know what nothing I can do. So right now, I'm in a exciting trend. Right.
Excuse me just a minute. Can I try to maybe offer something, and you tell me if what I say is not correct and is not representative of what you're talking about?
Okay, go ahead.
I believe what Clem is bringing to our attention are alternatives to the way in which the city deals with certain issues that are always adjacent to poverty. And even as she's speaking, we have organizations not only like hers, but Violence Interrupters and others who are actually doing good work in the community. But it's non-traditional work, but it's work that does deal with folks caught up in abject poverty. It doesn't mitigate abject poverty, but it does give place for people like Clemmy. And what she does is to save children one body at a time. And so that's what I'm hearing her say. I know that we don't have buildings, but I think on the larger thing that got caught up in some of the defund police conversations, that that title is problematic, but there are ways that have been going on that organizations such as Clemmy's, churches, and others have been mitigating the impacts of poverty in these overlooked communities. So she's here trying to expand her program because she has had some success, and she's needing help in that expansion.
Okay, and so this helps. I mean, I felt that, and I am in major support. And thank you for the work that you do. And I'm sorry for the loss of so many beautiful young lives that are a part of your family. This has been happening way too much to way too many people. One of my best friends from grad school just lost her nephew to the same exact thing. So I certainly have the passion and support to support you. I want to know, so if bodies are a part of it, to be coming and to be active and interactive with your programs, would it be that you would want some of us commissioners to join? I mean, I'm more than willing. I am a professor, so I certainly have many students every semester that want to get involved in things, and it's not a credit situation for classes. They need it for other things. Plus they have big hearts that want to dig in. Is that something you would want us to connect you with volunteers? Yes. Okay, great. Yes. And then back to the situation of the building. Can you all clarify for us if you need us to try to seek out buildings, or if you are also needing more funding for that building vis-a-vis the person who said they'd pay the rent for a year? Is what they're willing to pay, is that one of the challenges, or is actually procuring and finding the place the challenge? And what are the challenges that you all are involved with so that we can figure out a way to help? And then as well, what is a space, what kind of space are you looking for and wanting that would be most effective for your projects? And definitely, I'm sure this is coming, but please make sure you get us in contact with your programs and whoever we need to talk to, so that those of us who want to join in outside of this can, and also we can encourage people in our networks to join in and support. Thanks so much. By the way, beautiful work that you're all doing.
Thank you, guys. Yeah.
So
I also wanted to say one thing, if I can, Mel, and that is,
please do.
I'll be very brief. And Clemmy, thank you, and thank you for the work you're doing, and definitely it hit the heart. And I'll leave it at that for now. But just to say that in addition to what we can try to do, one of the things I think is so helpful is learning from you and hearing and being directed by you. And keeping that line of communication just open and just being very prescriptive to some of us about what you need and when you need it.
Mel, I have a comment. If Summer, we so appreciate.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. As far as what the commission itself can do, I'm looking at our website right now for the, and just, figuring out a way to present this organization in a more public facing, venue. And, we have opportunities on our website looking at, projects and events. we could include opportunities to serve as part, maybe something on our website that we can then, have causes like this, and not limited, there's so many to serve, but at least make that, an objective for us to, provide people at least one more opportunity, one more way to connect and to know about it. I know that it'd be redundant in some places, but, since we have ESL map and, some of the other services that are out there, there are ways that we can serve and give back. So, I just definitely, personally, I want to connect, but had I not had this opportunity to hear Clemmy speak, I wouldn't know about the need. So I think that we can be proactive as a commission.
Piggybacking on that, Janice, what about, so Just Conversations just got a bunch of followers and a bunch of attention, and back on what Summer was talking about, why not? Because I think it is also really important. Clemmy's like, I don't present well, I don't communicate well, and I think that's all malarkey. Honestly, I think that's a bunch of bullshit, and I think you present fine, and I think it's really compelling to have you be the voice of this, and to tell your story however you need to tell your story. So you don't need to like edit yourself or whatever, curtail yourself. So just don't, and so I just think maybe there's an opportunity. I don't know about resources, but maybe there's an opportunity to just have an interview with you about this in the same regard. I know it's not, PR is not cash, and I hear the need for cash. I hear that loud and clear from the beginning. And we can think about, there's, when there's grants and there's opportunities, sometimes you need references, institutional references. Maybe we can be that for you. I don't know. We can think about how to turn this into real donor funds for you. But maybe just having that conversation with one of our commission members about what you do, about what you've seen, what you shared with us, in that on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that, something you can share can give you some currency. I know you've been quite public, and Clemmy and I have interacted in the past, but that's another idea. It's fairly weak, but I think getting your voice out there from your perspective is really, really important, and not having to sort of make it sound any differently, because honestly, this is the truth of what you're dealing with and what's going on in the neighborhoods. And so I just don't think cutting that short is the way to go. Anyways, thank you for being.
Thank you for saying
Mel, I'm assuming we're going to get contact information, because there may be ideas that I can't really think about right now, but that I can think about in time, about how to facilitate some of this work. Commissioner Tucker's idea about maybe contacting United Way and ask them to put together a program for non-traditional programs out there might be one way, but hearing it for the first time, I just don't know. So I'm assuming you're going to get contact information.
Absolutely. I will share contact information and ways of getting hold of both Clemmy and Cindy, and I'll follow up with them, or our office will follow up with them on specific things. And so I would really like to hear, once you've let this percolate a little bit, some more ideas from the commission. But I really appreciate the recommendations that have already been made. And Cindy, did you raise your hand?
Yes, I wanted to just say that our I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous. Our website is NashvillePeacemakers.org. If anyone would like to go on there and read a little more about our programs and a little more in depth about the organization.
Cindy, I wanted to let you know that I did go on there while y'all were talking, and it's a great website. And I also went to your Twitter feed. And I think if everybody on here can just follow you guys, it's on Twitter. That would be a recommendation that we can just very easily do in terms of just kind of getting your social media followers up.
When we were talking about the need for people and volunteers, one of the things that we really, really need, and Dr. Pryor, perhaps you have a student who or students who would be interested. We are looking for people to help us with our social media accounts. We do keep up with Facebook pretty regularly, but I'm not very Twitter savvy, and Clemmy's on Twitter a little more than I am, but we're not doing Twitter regularly. And so that would be, in terms of specific volunteerisms, we're looking for someone who can plug in and help us on that level.
I'm teaching race this semester with my mostly social majors and minors, and we talk about all of these kinds of issues, particularly locally, and we don't get to necessarily always focus the research projects on the local end, but that doesn't mean that my kids are not tapped in and wanting to be more and more tapped in. So I appreciate the suggestion, and I will certainly be in touch. I did want to leave it open, Cindy, especially to you, as you mentioned earlier about finding the space. If you had any further comment on that, since I still think we haven't quite gotten clarity on what we could do in that regard. And I know it was the first thing that you brought up as something we could help with. And then in addition with Clemmy and people and bodies and notoriety of your programs, I just wanted to reiterate that question or opportunity for you to mention anything if there was.
So let me take that. On that end is the reason I'm having a problem finding the building. People have sent me addresses, but once I go look at them, it won't work for me because of who I'm dealing with. And I'm going to be bringing people that people are scared of, and they are weary of, and it's supposed to be. I think. Let me just be honest. So it's got to be a building that just sits off in a yard or a parking lot by itself. It can't be hooked up in that. It can't be in Germantown. It can't be close to them. It just has to be something that I think that has to sit up to itself. That I can work with the people who's coming, but nobody will call the police on me for loud noise or cursing or marijuana smelling. It's like I tell everybody. When you tell that boy to pull up his pants, I got to tell him to get in my class first, and then I'm going to teach him how he going to pull up his pants. But I can't tell them not to pull up in my building without loud noise. But when they come back after 2 weeks, they won't pull back up in my building with that loud music because I done taught them something. So right now, the problem is me finding something that's not connected to anything. I don't care whether it's a 5-bedroom house or a 1-story building. It just has to be something neutral where I can deal with the people that I really need to deal with that's really out here doing the most crime. And so with you guys, it would be after this man run out in a year, where do I go from there? Do I worry again about how I'm gonna keep the lights on? So that's the other point where you guys can come in at. But as far as finding the building, I'm gonna look for finding the building. I just need help when I get in the building.
Specifics in terms of a facility, we would need to have room for meeting with 10 plus people at a time. The kids mentoring groups are 10 and 10. The Mothers Over Murder group can get up to 20, 30 people at one meeting. A kitchen facility is really, really, really important because so much happens around food. Food is a big, big, big part of breaking down walls. When you break bread and you share your day, that's how you start addressing trauma on that level. That's how we find out not what's wrong with our kids, but what happened to our kids is over a meal. So kitchen is going to be really, really important. Decor lends to ease and comfort, but we want a place that we can create a comfortable space. Doesn't have to be fancy. We had a great facility over on Leashy a couple of years ago. And we had to let go of that facility because of funding. Funding ran out. So a big meeting space, a couple of offices so that Clemmy can have an office on site and we're kind of spread out. The business office with Nashville Peacemakers is located in my business office. Clemmy's office is currently located at her home. For COVID, during the COVID battle last year. That worked, but things are going to change this year. So in terms of getting a little more specific, we haven't really discussed square footage, but I would think somewhere in the neighborhood of what, 1,500 to 2,300 square feet, 1,500 to 2,500 roughly.
Yeah, mention about we doing this whole COVID. We have fed families. We have had families come to us. We did a Christmas. We did a Thanksgiving. I mean, we did all this running back and forth to her office to my office. So I want to continue to do that. I want to look a nice room and we can have our own events, our own fundraiser. So this guy is helping me. And what can I do with this small fundraiser to keep helping the building grow and us to grow? So I want to always continue to feed my family. I don't care who they are and where they come from. I always want a space for that. And
what's the budget and what do you have with regard to furniture?
Nothing. I lost everything in the building. I lost everything from the storm, from the tornado. So I have never been working at nothing else. Harvey Park kind of gave us a little space for us to kind of make it into before they shut down COVID. Everything, I would be starting all over on everything. I used to ask the mayor for $50,000 in 90 days to show him that I just do something. Because I know everybody holler 1 million and all that, and that is true. But I just wanted to show them that I know how to do something with $1 because I was raised on $1. So our budget is $50,000 right there.
In terms of specific budget for a building, we are looking for something that is in the $2,000 range. We're being really.
The whole budget. Okay.
I think both are important. But in terms of the rent and the sponsorship that we currently have, it is for $2,000 for the building. And then we have a small amount for Wi-Fi. Ideally, we would find a building that would have the utilities included. I know that's getting more and more and more rare in Nashville as things are being, torn down, redeveloped and things like that. But, we have believed that there is a building out there for us. I know that there is. It's just a matter of finding it. And part of that is getting in touch with people who know what exists in the community beyond, the real estate people that we've been in touch with. There are people who know people who know people. And so we're just kind of spreading the ask.
My last question.
Wait, you say 2,000. I'm sorry. Richmond, when you say 2,000, are you talking about a flat fee or 2,000 per month? And also, Commissioner Miller, your sound is on, so if you can mute, that would help. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask if, in regard to a facility, have you all, is something that is seemingly residential but for rent something that you all are open to? Or do you want it to be more, industrial, corporate, office-esque type places that also would have kitchen abilities?
Well, I don't want it to be residentially. I do want it to be something like a small semi-commercial building with kitchen space and just room where we can put in other office, maybe bring in a couple of more struggling nonprofits. I mean, so we can have a cute little couch and the room to show movies and stuff like that. I don't want nothing real huge. I don't need all of that. I don't stop God blessing, but I just want to be real with it.
Mel.
And the $2,000, that's $2,000 rent per month.
Yeah, so I was looking for something within $1,200 to $1,500 a month, so I could keep the other for lights, water, whatever materials we might need, because I'm starting off fresh.
Hey, Mel, can I ask a question to you, Mel? What I'm hearing is...
Mel is logging off, so I think she had to leave. So I don't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I do too in 2 minutes.
Well, let me ask you then, Marissa, or let me just throw this out, because what I'm hearing is two things. We have a nonprofit that is in financial trouble, which is one thing, and I hear folks asking her as a way of getting more information to see whether or not we can help her organization. But I'm thinking that there may be something that the Human Relations Commission can do on the research side of maybe even providing some level of research to give proof of concept that these type programs do work. Because if they do, then the commission could make a suggestion to Metro through the social services that when funding comes around, that this becomes one of those areas that social services could possibly start to fund. So in my mind, I'm hearing what Clemmy's dealing with as an organization right now, but as these things start to pick up around the country of alternatives to, because what ends up happening is the police come in. So as we look at alternatives to policing, then violence interruption and programs like this become more mainstream. That we could.
No, I'm gonna have to stop you, David. I'm not to stop you because here's the second time. Now that's the second time you done brought up violence interruption.
Well, hold on a minute, Clemmy. Hold on a minute, Clemmy. Clemmy, please hold on a minute. I'm talking about you too. I'm just saying. Okay, all right. I'm out.
This is my
I'm out. You got
my
it.
meeting is not going to be bought in the name of nobody else's organization. This is my time. This is my meeting. This is my plea for help. I don't want to hear about violent interrupters. I don't want to hear about Oasis. I don't want to hear about Martha O'Brien. I'm talking about Clemmy Greenlee and Nashville Peacemakers and what I do. So I don't want to disrespect you. I never have. But I'm going to have to stop you on that one. So Cindy, can we get in contact with some people, get their information, and we come back to them on a separate note? I want to just thank everybody for even being interested in what Clemmy Greenlee and Nashville Peacemakers have done and continue to do out here. People like that, he's naming, they got people, they got volunteers, they got Vanderbilt, they got Belmont, they got all of them behind them. I have only one person behind me, and that's God. So I'm asking some of y'all to get behind me now, because I'm gonna continue to do what I do regardless. But I'm just letting you guys know, like the lady who said, let me speak the way I speak, I appreciate you. And that's who I am. But again, my kids is coming out of the restaurant. I have to get off.
One
Cindy,
thing,
if you need
before you leave,
don't hold up no time.
I'd like to say something before you leave. I just made a small donation for you on your website right now. Thanks for the presentation.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chuck. I actually saw that pop through. Thank you very much.
I give everybody much love, and my kids are coming. Cindy, take it from there.
Okay. Again, y'all, thank you very, very much for the opportunity to be a part of your meeting, your monthly meeting. Thank you for taking the time to hear a little more about Nashville Peacemakers and to act on your desire. I'm sorry, I'm going to get emotional because I've been with Clemmy for 12 years, y'all. I have seen firsthand the lives changed. I have seen parents approach Clemmy at their wits' end with their kids, not knowing what to do, knowing that their child is going to end up either in jail or dead. I have seen mothers bring their daughters to Clemmy because they are so concerned that their daughters are going to get caught up in a life of sex trafficking. And I have watched those kids turn their grades around. I have watched those kids create focus and purpose in their lives. One of the things that we're working on doing this probably in Q2 of this year is a virtual art show. We have so many talented kids. They're painters, they're sketch artists, they're spoken word artists, they sing, they play the viola, they play guitar. These kids are so talented. And because somebody like Clemmy Greenlee said, you know what? I want you. You feel like nobody else has wanted you. I have watched these kids try to make us quit them. And when they realize that we're not going to quit them, you can't even realize the change, the shift in these, I say little human beings, they're teenagers. But it's the most rewarding work that I have ever done in my life. When I met Clemmy Greenlee at the Nashville Film Festival in 2005, and then re-engaged with her in 2007, my life changed forever. And I promise, if you walk with her, if you walk with the organization, plug in with us for a minute, it will change your life too. And it will change your life in the process of changing somebody else's life. And that's the whole beautiful thing, is that we're not just doing 10 kids and then you go on, and 10 kids and you go on. We're doing 10 kids. You walk with us for a minute. You see the difference. You see the effect, the change in their life. And it's not, we've had groups of siblings across our programs. We've had groups of siblings where the mom is in the Mothers Over Murder, and then the kids come into Basics and Straight Talk. And so now you're affecting generational change. And that's really where, if we're really going to make some long-term change to the people that we serve, it's one at a time, tiny little bite-sized pieces, but we can affect the whole community.
Thank you so much. I have to sign off. You all are amazing. I'm donating right as we speak as well, and we'll be in touch with you to see if we can get some people out there, including myself, to help you all. Thanks so much. Y'all, I'm sorry, I got to go teach. Take care.
Thank you. Clemmy's already moved off. Thank you, Cindy, Ms. Montano, for both of you for your excellent presentation. Your great work. Certainly, we'll do what we can to help. We don't have it in our budget. I will just tell you that flat out. But we're going to do what we can, at least to help publicize the work you're doing, and hopefully, as members of the community, try to help support you and help you get that building that you so desperately need to serve this community, because those kids, need your help, and we're glad to have you part of this community doing exactly what you're doing. So that's a little over past our adjournment time, but Mel had to log off, so we don't have a director's report tonight. But does anybody have any? Thank you. And but does anybody have any announcements before we adjourn for the evening? Going once, going twice. Okay, no announcements. If not, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. We'll see each other in April, and if you haven't gotten vaccinated, I hope I'm looking forward to get mine this month. Have a